everyone was like, oh, print is dead. That was what I heard constantly. But print was never dead, and it never will be. What just matters is what they are printing. Everyone who signs on a client, if they're smart, realizes that they are now a coach. They are now the therapist, and they're being told, I should be an entrepreneur. But they're not being coached on how or what that means.
Hey guys, it's Remington. I wanted to preface this episode by letting you know it's a little different. This is actually me being interviewed by an actual client of Real Producers, but someone who's got their own podcast talking about the original story of how Real Producers came about, the struggles, and the building of the company, and then gets into the reason why it works and the best ways to get the most out of a partnership with Real Producers, why the realtors love it. Anyway, wanted to let you guys know it's a little different, but it's a great interview. Hope you enjoy it.
Like, I want to become a good ally to agents. So what is an agent ally, and how does one become a good agent ally?
How to become an agent ally.
Yeah.
All right. So when I wrote the book, I originally wrote it from the perspective of the agents being the ally, because most of the businesses that I'm speaking to are not really even selling to real estate agents as much as they're trying to get to their database. So if you think about a mortgage broker, the realtor's not paying a mortgage broker lender any money. They're leading their clients to the lender who's paying the money. And so you're not really selling. Like, the book could have been how to sell to real estate agents. And there is an element of that within the book, but it's more so about how to align and partner with said agents so that they lead their entire database. And so all the businesses that I'm writing to, I mean, there's a few core industries that kind of already get this. They are primarily calling on realtors already. So title companies, mortgage companies, builders, they do more marketing to real estate agents than they do the consumer. So I naturally speak to them, and that's kind of what my upbringing was. But there's also a bunch of service industries and a bunch of other industries that I think are missing the mark, missing the boat on potentially saving on their advertising dollars from going to the masses, which is a really hard conversion rate, to spending that time and money within the real estate community and getting one realtor to then give them their entire database of 50 to 60 home sales that year. So that's really why the book was written.
Nice. So the way that they're missing the mark is they're trying to just get everybody, and you're saying that the correction should be that they they're not flirting with, but like they should hit the specific agents that are doing a lot of high volume.
Yeah, I mean, I personally believe that if you're going to spend money on something, there's going to be very few things that don't work at all. Like, ultimately, like, getting your name out there will have some element of branding. But if you're looking at the most efficient dollar spend, for me, if I were to start a service at like plumbing, electrical, whatever tomorrow, the first thing I would do is get into the real estate circles, because I know that especially the right agents, right? That's where our business came in for Real Producers, is segregating the realtors that are actually doing all the business and a lot of it from the rest, because there's a high turnover rate in real estate. But if you get the right realtors and you actually start to get them to use you and refer you, now you have their entire database, and they're advocates on a regular basis sending you the business. So I'd rather spend more time and effort there, because it's a multiplier if I actually convert it.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So, yeah, because I see that happen where, people will want to grow their personal brand and they want to go viral.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's difficult to do. But also, I don't know, just because I've had agents that get over 1 million views on Instagram and the reel, or, they'll just be popping off on TikTok, and they don't see a difference.
Yeah. In terms of how much they sell or make.
Yeah. Their bottom line, what they're making, makes no difference. Yeah. And so everyone's been told, oh, you need to post more on social media. And so their immediate thought is, well, get a lot of views. That's what you need to do.
Yeah.
And that's a mistake that I see people making, where it's like, no, get 500 people who love you, and they're going to know 5 people over the next, however many years.
Yeah.
They're going to buy or sell.
I think it determines on what determines that is what they're selling, because there are certain people who can convert and make money. It's just a small percentage. So the influencers who are getting tons of views and tons of follows, or the speaker who needs clout, or the influencer who's on the rise that wants to sell marketing. There is a happy medium there. But you're right. Like for most of the industries that we're talking about, including real estate or realtors themselves, they're not necessarily, the more views they get is not translating to more dollars in the pocket. Not always, and not nearly as much as you would think. So I had Rory Vaden on my show, who wrote "Take the Stairs: Procrastinate on Purpose," and he said, I'm gonna butcher this, but he said everyone is more obsessed with the width of their reach versus the depth of their connection. And if they would spend more time really connecting with a few of their database, it would double their business quicker. Because he's like, hey, most people try to double their business by getting thousands of followers, and that's how they're going to double. But in reality, if they get every single one of their clients to give them one referral, basic math says they just doubled their business. I'm like, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
Yeah.
And there are people with less than 6,000 followers on Instagram that are making over $1 million a year. And so there's just
people who are not on Instagram. I know this is 2024, but there's people who are making a lot of money that aren't on Instagram.
that 100%. So I want to go back to before you wrote the book, before, you're sitting down with me, little old me, back in, was it 2014 that you started Real Producers?
2015 is when we came out with the first issue.
So I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs that want to know about some of the things that started Real Producers to get it to where it is now.
Yeah.
But give some people context. What is Real Producers before we get to how did you get it to here?
Yeah.
So what is it?
So Real Producers is a platform that is mostly known for the magazine, because we have a print magazine, and it goes to the top realtors of a given market. And to give you an example of Indy, which is where we live, Indianapolis has 10,000 realtors. The magazine goes to the top 500, and the cutoff is right around 10 mil. And the purpose is to create a community for the top agents, how they think, how they spend money, so they can rub elbows with each other and get better, but then also connecting them with the paying vendors, which is the only way we actually make money. We don't charge the realtors for anything. So the magazine was the first step. Then we created events, which are just for the people that are involved in the magazine. And then we have a social media aspect naturally with the day and age. So it's really a three-prong approach to groom relationships with the top agents in a given city. So that was 2015. That was just me. Proved the concept for a couple of years, and then we're now in 140 markets.
That's crazy.
Nationwide, yeah.
So when you started it in 2015, or when that first issue came out, who was underneath you or who was with you helping with that magazine?
So I was selling closing gifts, and I wanted to sell more closing gifts, and that's what gave me the idea. So I created this online email newsletter, which is just sent to my database, which was called the Realtor of the Month. And it was terrible, and it went nowhere. I didn't sell any advertising, but the events, I was really good at the events. So I started hosting my own client parties, essentially, and selling advertising or sponsorships to other vendors who wanted to meet the realtors who could afford my closing gifts. And then it kind of evolved from there. Well, there was a publishing company that I had ties to because I had a friend who was working for them, and they were looking to expand. And I had the idea for Real Producers, but I realized that I had $0 to back it, and I could print it in my parents' basement if I really wanted to. And I would, as soon as someone caught that good idea with deeper pockets, I'm done. Like they're just going to scale it, and it's over. So I teamed up with a company at the time was called Into Publishing. Now it's called the Into Companies because they're an umbrella company for a handful of niche products that are very successful.
All magazines?
Not all magazines, but mostly magazines. There's a couple of digital products as well. So I approached them, and the two founders of that company, we were very much aligned, came from the same faith background, and I realized that really, I had no other option if I wanted this to be successful, and they were already in the markets that I wanted to be in. So I went to them, I was like, hey, got this idea. And they basically said, hey, prove the concept and we'll bankroll your idea as long as you keep proving every step of the way. So there's probably a different type of journey than a lot of entrepreneurs who just do it by themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like
your original question.
Well, a lot of entrepreneurs, at least the ones that I talk to, they would be a phenomenal employee if they found the right person to work with.
Yeah.
And it's like they would, if they found their Steve Jobs or their Elon Musk, like they would go full in, they'd be bought into the vision. They just haven't found that. So they've had to just do it themselves.
You're saying a lot of entrepreneurs that you've met don't want to be the guy. They don't want to be the CEO.
They're fine being the CEO because they haven't found something else. And so they're like, I'll just do it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like the stand-up comedian who watches someone else and they're like, I could do that.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I wish that there was someone else. I'll just do it myself.
What's interesting is like the humility to, once it's reached an actual point of successful whatever, the humility to step aside and let someone else take over, where it's still like your baby, your ideas, that's very challenging. So the longer they stay the CEO, regardless of how big the company is, you have 100% creative control and autonomy. And oftentimes for it to grow, even if it's a small business, you're not the person that's supposed to be in that seat, and getting out of that seat is very tough.
And so you started practically not in that seat.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was that difficult, or were you just like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was tough. It was tough because I really had no other option. Well, I mean, that part was easy. If I have no other option, then I just got to swallow that pill. But there's certain things that you get really passionate about that ultimately is not your company anymore. You sold it. So you can lobby, but it ends there. That's tough. But it's, again, like, you got to humble yourselves. I had my pride was snapped in half when all those issues would arise, which was actually pretty positive for me. But one thing that I always kept true was like, am I constantly thinking for the brand? Because there's your top people, once you prove the concept, now you start recruiting, right? That was step 2, was now I got to recruit top salespeople to boost this out. So 2 years later in 2017, I recruited 22 people, much like myself, to just teach them how to do it, go out and do it in their own city. So now we're growing and we're a bigger company. We've got a little bit more market share. And we need to recruit fast because we want to have the most market share if a competitor arises, which is crazy. I mean, 10 years into this, there's really not any competitors that do what we do yet. All the meanwhile realizing that as a leader of this thing, but not owning it, you're really influencing it, but you still have what I would say, quote unquote, a boss. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of entrepreneurs think to themselves, I don't want a boss. But the truth is, all of us have bosses in the shape of clients. So like if you're the only person who works for your company and you're selling whatever, but you're not responding to emails, you're not responding to the market, then ultimately you're firing yourself because your bosses, the clients, aren't happy with you. Mm-hmm. So that's a hard concept for a lot of people to realize. And to be honest, like every single person you run into is answering to somebody.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. When you were working with the N2 company to get from 1 to then like 23 in a couple of years, what kind of systems did you guys have to have in place to get there? Because it's like, okay, this works in Indy with Remington. Mm-hmm. Does it work with this person over here?
Yeah.
And what were some of the things that you noticed to get those systems in place?
So this isn't going to be exact for all businesses as they're growing, but for us, there was really a home office side, which was digital and printing and anything that didn't have to do with sales and then sales. So for me, I had to make sure the product was still going well, meeting with the marketing, the designers, like, all of that, the printing, Well, the cool thing about it too is they were around for 10 years before me. So they made way more mistakes that I didn't have to make. They printed ads upside down, inverted colors, sent them to the wrong city. And so they got a lot of those kinks out, which was really nice. I still need to keep an eye on the brand as we're building it, but I can focus most of my time on just selling this thing. Hey, the product is good. We teamed up with a company that gets it. Let's just focus on selling and expanding. And if we take one on the chin, then we'll, the cool thing is another issue comes out next month. So calm down.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. And so we've got the magazine, which is the third-party validation of the real estate agents. Yeah. And so they love it because it's proving that they are truly a top producer instead of just saying.
No one doesn't like seeing their name and face in print.
100%. Yeah. In fact, actually, I have one of my clients. I think by the end of this year, will have sold 20 million.
Okay.
And I think he texted you and said, hey, when do I get the magazine? And you just said, be a top producer. And he's like, I am a top producer. So does it go like the next year or like?
Yeah, it's a calendar year. And I probably was more eloquent than that. I hope I didn't just say that.
He's a funny guy. So I'm sure he was just like, yeah, Remington just told me to be, I'm trying to be a top producer.
Yeah, so it's calendar year. So whoever top 20 in 2023, the top 500 agents for an entire year get the magazine. That's how it is in all the markets.
Very cool. So you've got the magazine, third-party validation of their business.
Yeah.
You've got the events, which celebrate the agents. And then you have, in both of these camps, opportunities for these vendors to put their names out, get to know them, especially at the events.
Yep.
You know, take them out to lunch afterwards or get coffee. And then you have the social media. And so I'm curious what you guys do with the social media, because I understand these well for both the business, how it affects the agents. What are you guys doing in this camp?
Well, social media is the social proof for people who do not see the magazine, because the magazine is only mailed directly to the top 500 agents and then the paying partners. But there's a lot of blowback in a positive way. There's a lot of excitement when a magazine drops. So where do they take to? Well, they take to social media. They hop on Facebook and they take a screenshot, post it up there. And now, as we're signing on clients and they're trying to understand what this whole, Real Producers business is, they're looking at our pages, they're looking at personal pages, and they're looking at the realtors who actually care about this, and they realize, oh, this is a big deal. And the magazine, we've always said, is like Facebook and print. Because when I first started in 2015, everyone was like, oh, print is dead. That was what I heard constantly. Now, if you flash forward 10 years, no one's really saying that anymore, because it in this moment, print has actually made a huge comeback. Niche products are big, magazines, comic books, everyone loves print right now. But in the next 5 to 10 years, much like any other cycle, most likely people are going to say print is dead again. But print was never dead, and it never will be. What just matters is what they are printing. And so at that time, there was no niche products as much as there was just mass media. And why would I get a newspaper if I can also, just see this exact news story on my phone, text my friends, and play Candy Crush all at the same time, right? So that's why that kind of cut through the crap. Now, we also have other options for clients, whether it's retargeting or geofencing and all that kind of stuff too, which is just another reflection of whoever's reading the magazine and just staying in front of the right eyeballs, which in this case is the top 500 agents.
That's really cool. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, because I hear the 3-prong approach for Real Producers. And yeah, like when I'm an affiliate partner with RP in Indy, and it was confusing.
Yeah.
And like you made it really simple, but it was something that I was like, okay, wait, I'm not quite sure. And for the products that I sell, like the agents that are not in that top 500 probably should not be paying for it, because they're not there yet. So when I sell media, because that was a mistake that I made, is I let people who didn't have a ton of money, didn't have a lot of income, pay a lot of money for media.
Yeah.
And their expectation was, this is going to fix my business. Like, hey, that's everyone.
You have to coach them.
I coached them a lot. And, unfortunately, I did have to fire some people where I just was like, look, I care about you. Like I took their engagement photos. I want you to succeed. But I saw so many patterns and habits where it was ultimately like, I have to fire you because switching brokers or switching cities or like doing more media, this is not going to fix all of your things.
Right.
And so that was something that I had to do. But
that's something I talk about in the book, is that you really have to coach your clients, because ultimately, if they don't understand the value offering or the ROI, quote unquote, then what's going to happen is ultimately you lose, because their expectations aren't met. And so when you sign on a client, everyone who signs on a client, if they're smart, realizes that they are now a coach. They are now an ambassador, a brand ambassador. They are now the therapist, all the things, so that the person who's trying to get the value that doesn't quite understand it, because you said when you first signed up, it was confusing. Well, that's on me. So if we're not doing a good job of onboarding or coaching you on all the things that can happen, ultimately in a year, whenever the renewal's up, you're not going to renew and nobody wins, because if it does truly work, which we know it does, then I need to do everything I can to help you understand how to get the most out of it, so that I continue to win having you as a client and you get business and you win. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the confusing part wasn't necessarily about the product. it was confusing as to, which is so silly. It was confusing as to how is this going to help my business? Because I'm the media person. And if I'm having print ads and not video ads, like there was like some disconnect there. But like, I mean, I get one client from RP that pays for 1 month's worth of social media. That pays absolutely for the entire year. If I get one client to pay for an entire year's worth of media, whether that's Instagram Reels or YouTube or podcast, it pays for years worth of stuff. And it's like, so I just like, as far as the ROI, which I want to ask you about, because you have some interesting perspectives on ROI that's different than other people. But the traditional ROI, what do I put in, what do I get out, is astronomical. So the confusion was just, how is this going to help my business? And I should have just been looking at a spreadsheet or a Notion database and be like, you're an idiot if you don't do this. So I want to hear about your perspectives on ROI.
So I've come a long way in ROI, because when I first got into the industry, I didn't really worry as much. I was on the other side in terms of ROI, where I was taught, not even in school, but just like when you get to the school of hard knocks with business, that if you're going to spend money, you need to see a tangible return on investment. And I'll give you I'll skip to the end real quick and let you know that that's just absolutely not true. And it's very extremely hard to do in certain mediums. But as I was starting to build the magazine, like in the first couple of years, they're asking me about, like clients are asking me about ROI, and I didn't really have a good answer for them because I didn't really understand ROI at the time. I just realized that if people are getting in the room and are constantly in the room and they are constantly seeing your brand, it can't be a bad thing. So I don't know how to answer that question, Mr. Client, but this has worked for me, and I don't know the science behind it, but I'm going to find out. So it was really a journey for the next 10 years of not only understanding it, but coaching it and helping people think from another way. So when it comes to marketing, there are options where it's like click to play. You do that a lot online, and you see those, you know, even in other options, like now with magazines that have QR codes, like you can track if you're getting calls. However, I would say that any type of print medium or commercial or billboard or anything like that you're doing, I wouldn't get discouraged if I'm not getting an immediate return or even a tangible return from the phone number or the QR code, because it's a compound effect that gets people to use you in the first place. So when it comes to branding, my question is, am I in front of the right people? Am I in front of a lot of them? And what is the value I'm bringing to where eventually I'm going to break them down where they want to use me? And so when I realized that, then I had this like double down excitement around the magazine, because I'm like, oh my gosh, the question is not how many people are going to call me from this. The question is, are they reading it? And are they keeping it? Are they collecting it? And if the answer is yes, then give me 2 ads, because I want to be in front of them constantly to where they see me in the billboard, they see me in my truck, they see me whatever. And the 10th time, like I can't take credit for it if they did wake up one morning, look at the magazine and say, hey, I got to call Tom. Well, the truth is they were already groomed to call Tom when they saw him at a party or at the office or on Facebook. And then finally the straw that broke the camel's back was the magazine. So that's the kind of re-educating that we have to do, especially with marketing directors or anyone who went to school for this that is taught a 3-to-1 return or a 10-to-1 return or all that. Like ultimately those businesses don't get it, and they'll have strenuous relationships with their clients because they're having a very high expectation and it's very transactional.
Yeah. And I think that one thing that's cool about real producers is, let's say that someone does, because this has happened to me, someone sees my ad, they reach out to me because they're like, hey, do you do headshots? Which I can do headshots, but I'm going to send them to other, I can do headshots, I can do websites. But like, that's what they want to know. And then I said, no, but like I can send you these 3 people, and then it kind of fizzles out. Well, then in 2 months when I see them in person, like I'm able to have a conversation with them, and that is huge. Right. Where it's like they did see the ad, they reached out, but they didn't want that. And now they're talking to me and they're like, oh, you do that? Yeah. And now they want this. Yep. Or they might, you know, I've had some people where, you know, we set up meetings, and this happens a lot, where they set up meetings, they get really excited, but the way that the real estate industry is they might be really excited in this month, but when we are going to do it, or when the contract needs to be signed and they need to pay, then they're like, actually, I don't know, our team didn't do that well. And so things kind of like, you know, they fizzle out a little bit, but then I see them again. Yep. and then I get lunch with them. And so it's like, I'm not so concerned if people don't buy my stuff now.
Sure.
Because I'm going to keep seeing them.
Yep. 100%.
And so that, as far as the compounding of that relationship, you know, there's a little bit of,
I mean, just think about yourself and how you buy things and how you track. Like maybe it's hard for us to think, no, we're not targeted and we're not. I mean, we all know we are targeted on social media, but just think about other ways and things that make you make a decision to do something. I got a catalog from Viore, which is a clothing company, I think out of California. And for the longest time, they were just online. Now they're in stores. But before they were in stores, they would just send me a monthly catalog because I ordered from them one time. And I'm always on Instagram, and that's where I would normally see them. But I wouldn't always buy something. I kid you not, I'm sitting at my desk, and I was thinking about getting something, and I forgot, which is a lot of times why people don't use you, not because they don't want to, but because they forget. And so I'm sitting at my desk and there's a catalog for Viore. It reminded me and I got online and I got it immediately because I wanted like a pair of shorts for like something. And that was from literally a print magazine sitting on my desk. I didn't even open it. So that brand, that ROI acronym, return on investment, in the book I write, it's reach optimal impact. And you're just basically thinking, how many eyeballs can I get in front of? Are they the right eyeballs? And once I get in front of them, am I going to have the impact that I need for them to actually decide ultimately to use me? Mm-hmm. And then do it over and over again.
Yeah, I think that's a much better reframe because people pay money on, you know, whether it's like T-shirts for their clients or, you know, they pay money on like quote unquote stupid things with the traditional ROI.
Yeah.
But they are happy to do that. But then when it comes to advertising, they're like, well, hold on. Like I'll decal my truck, but I'm not going to put an ad in a magazine that gets to the right people.
Yeah.
And because they see that with their decal, they see that with their swag or with their cups or whatever it is, their Christmas gifts. They don't see that with the magazine, which is like, no, that's the same thing. Mm-hmm. Except with this, it's a higher impact. It's higher reach. It's better optimized. Sure. It's like, that's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
But people
don't want to. And the other thing, I mean, that we won't probably usually don't talk about is the fact that people don't want to be sold. So if we were if I was selling, you mentioned T-shirts. If I was selling T-shirts, the topic of conversation would be T-shirts. But because it's a magazine and I'm coming in because I make money off of it, you're already assuming, because we are, the human mind is like much more negative than we are positive because we've been hurt and we don't like being hurt. You're already assuming that this is something that is either too good to be true or you make money off of this. And to be honest, I think the most honest and open salespeople and businesses are the ones that continue to win more over anybody, because people will realize that, yeah, you're being honest, I will win, but you will win too. And so we're winning together. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and I think that something that I've had to reframe is I'll look at some of the people that I've worked for, the companies that I've worked for, and I'm like, they're making X amount of money off of this. Like, I know that I'll be able to figure that out. And I'm only making a small percentage of this, but I'm still making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Why would I care what they're doing? It's like, but that's not even the case. Like, again, one client with you pays for the whole year.
Right.
And then some. And so it's a better deal, quote unquote, for me as far as how much money I'm specifically making.
Yeah.
But there is that weird where it's like, well, they're also winning. It's like, that's okay. We don't have to have that scarcity mindset. Like, we can create value.
Right.
And yeah, I don't care what someone else is making if I'm making what I think I'm worth.
Sure.
100%.
Yeah, I think that's a really healthy standpoint. I don't think a lot of people adopt that.
Well, I heard it from people who make a lot more money than me. And so I hear it from them and I'm like, well, they're only making 50 million off of that deal.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be set for life.
Sure.
And like, but the other people that they're working with are making, quarter of a billion.
So then the question then becomes, is there anything that you can put that same dollar into that would be better or cheaper and get the same results? And so that's another thing you have to coach your clients on, is what those options are. And in some cases, it's pretty even. So it's just like, hey, who do you want to do business? Are you a likable person? Because if you're the entrepreneur, you're the CEO, you're the salesperson, you're the home office, you're everything. Are you likable? And in those beginning stages, you better be, because you're the face of the company, quite literally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, speaking of face of the company, I want to hear your thoughts on branding. And you've said to me and to a lot of other people, you need to become one with your brand. What does that mean?
Well, that came from a realization that people spend more time trying to figure out how much to put effort into their personal brand and also how much to do like branding for their company, realizing that I don't want to work for ABC Plumbing the rest of my life. This is just a stepping stone. So how much do I also put effort into my personal brand? Does ABC Plumbing, do they see my Instagram? Are they worried that I'm spending more time building my personal brand? And so I said, I created this concept. I basically wrote this piece about embracing your brand. And what it means is if you're working for a company, embrace it and embody that brand, because even if you do make a change, people will see how hard you worked for that brand. They're going to see how loyal you are. And ultimately you're going to win with the next one, whether that's with a different company that you're also going to be loyal with and work hard for, or your own company. But a lot of it also came out of like talking to kids, anyone who's 18 to 25 that's trying to start their own thing, or even younger, trying to become a YouTuber and make millions of dollars just posting YouTube videos. That just doesn't happen. It literally just doesn't happen. There's a lot of you can read up stories, but even the ones that it did happen for, there's some weird things going on there. So what happens is millennials are staying in their parents' houses longer. They're not getting out of the basement. Now Gen Z is following them even longer, not getting married, not moving out, because they want to make money first, and they're being told, I should be an entrepreneur, but they're not being coached on how or what that means. So I'm arguing that if you want to be an entrepreneur, I'm all for it. I'm one. I love it. There's different degrees of entrepreneurship. Figure out at least what industry you're thinking about and go get a job. Like just get a job within the industry and do it, even if it's a crap job, and do it and really embrace that brand, learn everything there is about that job and about that industry, and then start paying attention for holes, pay attention for opportunities. What can I create? What can I correct? There's a problem here. How do I fix that? And that if you're naturally attracted to be an entrepreneur, you are creative. Like get creative with that, team up with other people, fix that need. And as the money that comes in for that side hustle becomes enough, then convert to being your full hustle. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs, quote unquote, are just homeless 20-something-year-olds that are trying to make it big without any real concept of how to work hard or what to do once they get the money.
Yeah.
So that was a long-winded answer.
Well, no, that's really interesting because Seth Steven Davidowitz, would you believe me if I told you he was Jewish?
Sounds like a knight.
He's a real funny guy. He wrote a book called, I think it's Don't Trust Your Gut.
Okay.
And he's a data scientist, and he tried to make a book that was like the money ball for your life.
Okay.
And so like,
That's interesting.
What can we...
Was it good? Did you read it?
I thought parts of it were really good.
But that's what he said is he's trying to make that. That's an interesting. Yeah, I like that.
And so Moneyball is, what they did in baseball is trying to figure out what are the things that we optimize for that will get us the greatest return. And it was just get people on bases, just not home runs, not fastest pitches. It's like, what can we do to just get people on the bases? Mm-hmm. And so what he tried to do is in different categories of life, see what are the things that get the highest return. And there is this intuition that entrepreneurs are young. It's all the college dropouts like Mark Zuckerberg or, these people like Steve Jobs that didn't need the higher education and they just go and do these things. And that's a fun story and it is inspiring, but the average age for the entrepreneur is 45 in America. It's not 25. It's not 20. And the reason that is they do that. They work for 25 years and then start their thing. So I don't think that someone necessarily needs to do anything. Yeah. But that's something I wish I had done. Sure. Is worked, because I remember there was a time that I felt like such an idiot because I was like, I know I can just be making money at a restaurant. Yeah. I don't understand all of these business things. Like I'm the quote unquote marketing guy and I can't get people to buy my stuff. Yeah. I felt like such a fraud and I was selling off all of my comics and toys. And I remember after I had paid my rent, credit cards are maxed out. I had $2 in my bank account. Yeah. And it was like, I felt like an idiot because I was like, I should just get a job. But thankfully, through all of that, I learned a ton. Sure. But I think I could have learned a lot faster with less pain or a different kind of pain than debt. Yeah.
It's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow to say, I'm going to work the dead-end job that I hate just to make the dollars to fund the passion. But I think it's way smarter than not having dollars at all and not learning work ethic at all. Your story is still pretty cool because you figured it out. And I don't know, there's someone that would argue that because you had your back up against the wall, you had no other choice than to figure it out. And there's something to be said for that. But I just think as a general rule, most of us could not go through as much financial pain while we're trying to do the thing. Mm-hmm. That's just the argument.
Yeah, and I think that even with that, I wish that it was like, and then I learned it, and then the next month, it was like, no, it was like a continuous like struggle for a while.
Yeah.
And now, like I look and I'm like, in the 6 months that I've lived in Indianapolis now, it's like I made way more than like the last 2 years. And, it's like, that's just crazy. Mm-hmm. But it's because I had to learn those things. I wish other people don't have to learn those exactly.
Yeah.
Something that I am very passionate about is, Benjamin Franklin said, you need to give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. But what I want to do is add something to that, where it's like, I want to give people a fish if they're hungry. I want to teach them how to fish so that they can do it themselves. And then I want to help them, walk alongside them, and help them pay for their first fishing pole. Because some people might go, great, now I learned this, but they don't, now they can't do the thing. Mm-hmm. And so especially in media, like I talk a lot about these punks that I want to like mentor because I want to expedite that process and like help them pay for their first computers and cameras so they can do all that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
So we're a long way off, maybe not that long from that, but that's something that I really want to do. And so I want to hear just what would you do if you were in my shoes? Because you are in a very different season of life. You're married to a beautiful woman. You got 4 great kids. What would you do if you were single and younger in this season of life?
Well, I don't know what you're asking. What are you looking to accomplish?
I guess just based off of whether it's in business or in life or in friendships, like what would be the things that you would be doing if you were in a situation like mine where like, I don't have a girl texting me, how was your day? And I don't need that.
I don't either, by the way. And you did mention I'm married, but she's got her own things going on. We got a 4-month-old at home, so I'm texting her, how you doing?
Fair enough.
So I have learned, and I learned this the hard way, but not to tell people what they should do as much as tell them what I've done. So I can answer for you what I would do if I was in your shoes in terms of single, age, what I have going on business-wise, where I'm at. Like I'll tell you, like for me, but I would caution you to know that my risk tolerance is different. My makeup of my DNA is different. My simple things like if we don't answer, when are you looking to get married and have kids, like that, some of the stuff I'm going to say is just not going to line up at all. So with that caveat, I will answer the question. In fact, I'll even tell you what I did. I worked extremely hard between the ages of 18 and 23. I'm talking 80 to 90 hour weeks in sales and in leadership. And I think that was too much at times. I was at a company that essentially was very heavy in the summers because of summer recruiting for college kids. And so that was when we made most of our money. And we spent the rest of the year kind of backing off a little bit. So we worked very hard in those summers. And I made a lot of money and I learned a lot of things. But you have the least amount of responsibility and you have the most time. So the only thing you have to be careful about is making sure that you actually take time for relationships. Because I would also argue that you should be in the best shape of your life. You should get the best sleep of your life because, man, I was just talking. I was at I have an office where I sublease so that I can have some like energy because it's just me here in Indy. I've got a staff, but we're all remote. So I have an office where I sublease, and I was sitting in the cubicles just talking to some of my now office mates buddies, and they were talking about these CEOs that they know that brag about getting like 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night, and they would say there's just too much to do. Why waste it on sleep? I'll sleep later. And I just think that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That means you're very bad at delegating. Yeah, you don't have enough people that you trust that will do the job better than you, that will take care of you. And I would be spending way more time creating relationships where I can partner, recruit, and delegate so that I can be healthy with my body and my mind. So I'd be getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep. I would be eating really well. I'd be, again, in the best shape of my life. I personally believe, at least for mental health, because that's a hot button, conversationalist piece on podcasts, the number one thing I did for my mental health was commit to working out every single day. 30 to an hour, I work out every single day. And it's that important to me. And if the choice is between that and something else, sometime even with my kids, as long as I get time with my kids, sometimes I'll choose splitting time for the gym for my kids because I'll be angry, I'll be off my game, I'll be tired. And man, when we're tired, we are cowards. So maybe not the conventional answer that you were looking for, but I would double down on my life decisions on what it wanted to look like 10 years from now when I do have the family and I do have the house and all the stuff.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that the question then is, AJ, are you getting good sleep? Are you eating well? Are you doing these things? And it's like, no. But those things, like that, everyone I've talked to has said the same thing.
Yeah.
And I recognize that in this season of life, I have a very great gift to be able to spend my time. But with that gift comes responsibility, because I don't plan on being able to read the types of things I'd like to read when I have a 5-year-old. It's like, good luck trying to sit down and read City of God by Augustine. The thing's like 1,000 pages, and it's complicated. But it's like, you have the time to do that now. You have the time to develop those habits. I would rather be developing the good habits of working out now than later. It's easier to put on muscle in my 20s than it is going to be in my 50s.
For sure. Let's say you don't do that and then you try to start doing it. Well, it's going to be your metabolism is going to slow down. It's going to be harder for you to put on a muscle, and if you're starting from scratch, cardio is going to be a nightmare. So if you do it while you're young, it actually is going to have to be less. And it's going to be such a habit that when all those things do slow down or get harder, it's not even a question. It's like tithing, right? If you tithe when you're a kid, this is why I teach my kids to tithe, even though they're not really even making money. It's just money we give them, because by the time they actually start making their money, it's not even a question. I'm not going to take from God. The 10% goes to God. And it's just off the top. Like, if we're looking to save money or make money, I don't take it from that pot. That's not even mine. And if you're ingrained in your brain to do that, then I believe you will be blessed, because it was never even a question. And so it's the same thing with like working out or any other decision that you decide to make when you're young to carry on, is like, what decision are you making for how you're going to feel after versus how you feel right now? Like, so food, if you're like, I'm hungry, and when the hungrier I get, the more I want, the worse the food choice is. So if I'm getting super hungry, I want it to be fast food because I know it's fast and I'll eat it fast. And I crave things that are worse for me the hungrier I get. So then you make the decision for Taco Bell. Nothing against Taco Bell, because, I'll crush some nachos and Baja Blast. But if you constantly make that decision, afterwards, you're not going to feel as well as if you eat steak and eggs, right? So the question is, how do you want to feel afterwards versus how do you want to feel right now in this moment? And it's so hard for us to make that decision over and over again. Well, if you do that with every area of your life, you'll think yourself, and it's not even going to be a question.
100%. 100%. Remington, before we wrap up, I got one last question that I want to ask everybody. What is one virtue or characteristic that you want to see more in the world?
Oh, wow. Well, that took a turn that I wasn't ready for, AJ.
That's okay.
So a virtue that I want to see more of in the world?
Yeah.
I could say love and respect, and I'm sure there's lots of good answers, and there's nothing wrong with those answers. I try to pride myself on being unique and help people think differently. So let me say seeker of truth. I don't know if this is necessarily a virtue, but if we actually all tried to seek actual truth, I think Oprah made it famous to like your truth, like this concept that you have a truth different from someone else. Well, truth is absolute. There is truth, and then there is not truth. So if we are actually seeking truth, what is the true thing, then I think we'll be a little bit more calm when we're dealing with each other when we don't agree on something. Because instead of, if you actually believe you found the truth of the matter and someone else is arguing with you, unless they're being violent, you want them to find the truth. And so you treat them differently, helping guide them to the truth, versus if you believe they're just out to get you and now all of a sudden we're just at odds. So I think, the world has progressively gotten a little bit more aggressive. And while I do think that that's historical and for a reason, if you're just thinking about your little area, your little grouping, ask yourself the question, am I constantly seeking the truth of the matter? Or am I just, especially with like social media, the reels that come up, it's like, okay, this reel, I've never seen anything about this matter, but this is the first reel, so this is what I believe until I see the next reel. Drives me nuts. So, seeker of truth.
I love that. Thank you so much, Remington. Where can people go and buy your book?
RemingtonRamsey.com.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much. This was a blast.
Yeah. Great studio.
Awesome.
Great interviewer.